Event planning and management meetings. During the planning and implementation of each event, you will be meeting with various people, whether in person, by phone, or online, to brainstorm, negotiate, finalize, and put into action all of the elements that make the event function beautifully, or make the function an event. It is important that your master timeline, discussed in detail in Video 9, Event Planning, Timeframe, and Scheduling, includes a list of essential meetings to take place each week of the timeline. These meeting schedules should include the meeting objective or objectives, agenda highlights, who will attend, how long the meeting will be, where it will be held, and any supplies or aids required. Each event will have a different timeline, different set of players, and vastly different meeting agendas. In some cases, you won't have many meetings and they'll be mostly with the same people. In others, you'll have dozens of meetings and only your core staff will attend them all, with many other professionals mixing in. The following individuals, company representatives, teams, and groups are likely to be on your meeting agendas for all of your large out-of-town events. When you factor them into your meeting schedule, how you factor them in is determined by your plan and timeline, and what you discuss with them will include all or most of the elements we've listed here, almost every time. Accounting personnel. Your bookkeeper and accountant are key to the success of your budgeting and bottom line. If you have a bookkeeper dedicated to an event or a staff bookkeeper who manages the budget for all your events, they should be included in every meeting. This member of your staff is responsible for making sure you stay on budget, and those authorized to spend money are fully aware of what they have to spend. You won't have to include your CPA in many meetings, but when your specific topic is the budget or other strictly financial matters, they should be included. Following are the topics you'll need to discuss with these team members: revenue, registration fees, early bird revenues, regular revenues, on-site revenues, sponsorship, exhibitor revenues and expenses, miscellaneous revenues and expenses, venue expenses, transportation expenses, accommodation and food and beverage expenses, audiovisual expense, printed material and administration expenses, advertising expenses, speaker fees, gratuities, taxes, labor costs, rental expenses, signage expenses, professional fees, telephone and utility costs, shipping and postage expenses, business center on-site office and registration costs, meeting room charges, attrition and cancellation losses, contingency funds, and any expenses or revenues associated with the people and practices of all of the following planning and management meeting attendees. Activity vendors. If your event includes activities that are supplied by outside vendors, climbing walls, horseback rides, dance instructors, etc., you'll want to have at least one meeting with all of them to go over their locations, needs, and requirements, whether or not they have any conflicts of interest, etc. You'll negotiate contracts with them individually before this meeting, but they do need an opportunity to work with each other, meet their point people on your staff, and work out any details of their participation that may be influenced by the big picture. Issues to discuss at this meeting include their requirements for accommodations, crew needs, equipment, food and beverage for their staff, insurance, load in and out specifics, parking, permits, power and other utilities, rehearsals, security, space and environmental issues, staging, staging areas, storage, and technical production. Advertising team. Once you've fleshed out your advertising and marketing plan, you need to identify your staff members who will be responsible for the marketing program and the suppliers of services to it: graphic artists, web designers, publication designers, etc. You will also have identified the media and advertising vehicles, discussed in Video 27, Marketing and Advertising Your Events. Your advertising team meetings should include relevant staff members and service suppliers, but not the media or advertising suppliers. The latter two should be negotiated separately and do not need to know of all of your advertising plans or associated investment. Advertising team meetings cover naming the event, getting a slogan for the event and a logo, key messaging, identifying the audience, print collateral and content and design, advertising messaging and design, mailing and emailing lists, marketing vehicles available and selection thereof, web content design and advertising, distribution of advertising, registration forms, entry fees and ticket sales, and collecting and analyzing feedback. Attorney. For the most part, you only need to bring your attorney into a meeting if some type of dispute is brewing. Your attorney will review all of your contracts, permits, and insurance policies as they evolve. There is little reason to pay attorney fees at any other time. Furthermore, most disputes will be handled behind the scenes, especially if they require the attention of a legal advisor. Audio-visual suppliers. If you work with more than one supplier, it's a good idea to meet with them all at the same time a few weeks out from the event. Include whatever staff, committees, and volunteers responsible for AV equipment and operations in this meeting. The purpose of this meeting is to ensure that you have everything you need in place with no unnecessary redundancies, and that the equipment each supplier is bringing is compatible with the equipment other suppliers will provide. In this meeting, you'll discuss room issues like obstructions on the ceiling and floor, room lighting, windows, and darkening possibilities, power and network availability, outlets, etc., identifying the in-house electrician and giving everyone that contact information, setup and strike schedules for rooms, room setup configurations and review of floor plans, function room agendas, number of presenters and anticipated audience, standard room set and special equipment needs per room, lighting and decor and its effects on AV, audio and video recording plans, and technical rehearsal schedules. Caterers, restaurants, bakers, and bartenders. As with the AV and activity suppliers, most of your negotiations will happen one-on-one, but it's a good idea to make sure all of your food and beverage people, including bakers, chocolatiers, and vendors, are on the same page. One meeting with relevant staff and volunteers a few weeks out from the event should be sufficient to nail down any issues about estimated attendance, head tables and other special considerations, audio-visual elements in food and beverage rooms, VIP area considerations, meal and beverage tickets and vouchers, awards or recognition programs during F&B service, dietary restrictions and special meals, when will events additional to food and beverage take place before, during, or after the service, background music or dancing, shows or entertainment scheduled, guest arrival schedules, and timing of service. Committees and volunteers. Committees can often be a great help to event planning and management teams as they take an aspect of the event, own it, run with it, and manage its on-site logistics. In most cases, these committees will be comprised of a team leader, probably a member of the staff, and a number of volunteers. It is very important to include your volunteers in as many of your planning meetings as they can attend because they are every bit as important as your paid staff and consultants, and they're most effective when they are kept in the loop. Your committees will have diverse obligations from managing the audio-video requirements to designing and implementing the front gate fanfare. Regardless of their focus, meetings with them should include election of a chairperson and assignment of responsibilities, timelines and checklists, venue facility needs, budget available, publicity requirements, progress, pitfalls, and status checks. Communication technology providers. These companies supply whatever devices and services you need to communicate with your team members on site at the event. These may be radios, cell phones, or Blackberries, etc. The most important aspect of their job is to make sure your team is familiar with the technology, trained to use it, and unafraid of doing so. If possible, have your communication providers meet with all your team members a couple weeks out and train them to effectively and confidently use the equipment provided. Convention and Visitors Bureau, designated management companies, and travel agents or coordinators. In many cases, you'll be working with a CVB or DMC when you are selecting a destination and venue or venues. When you and or members do a fam trip or site visit, meet with your CVB contact. You may also want to meet with a CVB point person when you arrive at the venue prior to the event. Agenda items might include recommendation for local services and products, greening the event through local businesses, event add-ons and value addeds like tours, transportation and transfer arrangements, coordinated planning meetings at the destination early in the planning stage, and developing community awareness and building attendance. City, county, and other government agencies. Chances are you'll only need to meet with the government officials when you're obtaining permission to use certain properties and when you're arranging security for the event through their law enforcement divisions. That said, it's a very good idea to meet with all your government point people when you arrive at the destination, put faces to names, and make sure they know who you are and how to contact you directly and quickly. Decorator. The company you contract with to provide these services is likely to deliver and set up all your pipe and drape, tables, chairs, skirting, carpet pieces, etc. In the planning stages, you'll negotiate your event requirements with them, and they will be on site throughout the event to make last-minute changes and replace any dirty or damaged equipment. Make sure you meet with your decorator point people as soon as you arrive at the event venue. They are valuable members of your team and need to know and have access to you and your staff. Graphic artist. You may contract with a graphic artist to create the look and feel of your event messaging. It's not essential to personally meet with these service providers in most instances, as internet technologies make exchanging information about designs and proofs thereof quite easy. However, whether you meet in person, over the phone, or via internet conferencing, these are the issues important to designers. Your vision for the event graphics, color, raster versus vector, variations on themes, etc., how the graphics will be used, i.e. print, internet, gobo projected, etc., budget, deadlines, and feedback. Insurance company. A few weeks before each big event, sit down with your insurance provider and possibly your attorney and review all the policies associated with the event and the additional insureds. This is the best way to be confident you have dotted all the I's and crossed all the T's for adequately insuring your event against potential losses from calamities. Lighting engineers. Remember that your lighting provider or providers may be able to save you a lot of decorating money because so much can be done with light. Meet with them before you contract with any other decorators and work out how much you'll use light in your decor theme. Once you have contracted with them and subsequently with your other decorator and decor suppliers, try to arrange a meeting of the minds with them so all are on the same page about lighting, color, and how everyone's products work together. Mailing house, shipping companies, and customs brokers. In most cases, you won't have to meet in person with any of your point people in these categories. You do need to request their rates early on and contract with them to get on their schedule in a timely fashion. But the work you do with these folks can mostly be handled by phone, fax, and internet communications. Miscellaneous consultants. If you contract with an advertising agency, business coaching group, or other event planners, etc., make sure they attend any meeting during which their responsibilities might be addressed. These people are integral members of your team and need to be on the same page with your staff at all times. Novelty and specialty item suppliers. For the most part, you can order your giveaways, award, and gifts online, or just give yourself plenty of time for fulfillment and delivery of your orders. If you're commissioning unique high-end items, it's a good idea to meet with a sales rep or artist along with your graphic artist if their work is going to be incorporated. Your graphic artist may have to manipulate the design to make it work in the medium in which each commissioned piece is created. Online support providers. Some clients of online companies, web hosts, registration services, ticket sales companies, etc., are comfortable with working with large firms and their teams without meeting them personally. Other clients prefer more personal, hands-on small companies. Know your abilities to communicate in your comfort zone with these providers. If you want personal contact, request a dedicated rep from the large companies with whom you'll deal directly, or choose local providers you can sit down with. What you discuss at this meetings will be driven entirely by what services you need from them, when, and what your budget is. Photographer and videographers. Even if you don't meet your photo services providers before you arrive at the venue, you should always try to arrange a walkthrough with them, a photography rehearsal, so to speak. At this meeting, they'll put together their plan of action while you inform them about VIPs they'll be shooting, lighting and other decor issues, what their images and videos will be used for, and potential changes to the event itinerary, etc. Press. For the most part, members of the press are going to do what they want to do as it relates to their coverage of your event. That said, if you can personally meet them or have your team member who's responsible for media relations do so, when they arrive at the venue, it's well worth your while to do so. Provide them with the event itinerary and point out anything about it, presenters, VIPs, and standout attendees you think they might be interested in. Help steer them to aspects of the event they'll find newsworthy and be glad to cover. Rental companies. When renting big items, tents for example, it's always a good idea to meet with your rental company point person and do a walkthrough of the event that relates to them. During this walkthrough, double check they have everything you need on their build and install list, and review setup and takedown schedules. Security company. If your security contractors are responsible for high-level VIP security, they'll want to do a bit of a rehearsal before the event. Even if they will only be managing parking or equipment storage, it's a good idea to tour the venue with their team manager and make sure everything they require is available and in place. Speakers, bureaus, and speakers. It's unlikely you'll ever need to meet your bureau contact when booking speakers, but your speakers are VIPs, so meet them personally as soon as they arrive at the venue, and practice the policies for handling VIPs that we discussed in video number 21, How to Treat Your VIPs. Special effects suppliers. About a month out from the event, it's a good idea to meet with your special effects people and include your insurance contact and attorney in this meeting if the special effects are potentially dangerous. Pyrotechnics, for example. Ideally, this meeting would take place at the venue where your special effects team can tour the area they'll use and make sure all the safety measures required can be carried out in their allotted space. They should also take a look at your insurance policies to make sure their operations are amply covered. Staff. Your management team should be present at every meeting you can possibly involve them in. If you are unable to manage the event for any reason, your managers should be fully capable of doing so on your behalf. This means they need to know pretty much everything you do and have redundancy for you and each other. Temporary help. Although you probably don't need to meet your agency contact, do make sure all of your temporary help who attends the orientation meeting before the event starts. They should be taken on a walkthrough, shown the facility and areas where they will be posted, meet your staff, and be generally briefed about the event, communications, and how they should dress and comport themselves, etc. Transfer providers. If you will be using a number of services, bus or shuttle, limo, novelty transport companies, for example, you may want to meet with all of them before the event begins. This meeting serves as a dry run for how they will coordinate their efforts throughout the event. Union labor. If any of the people working your event are unionized, make sure you meet with their team leaders early on to iron out the terms of their labor agreements. Each union team will have an on-site manager who you should consider a member of your management team. Make sure you meet with them before the event starts and avail them of all your communication systems during the time they are working at the event. Venue point people. All the people who manage the venue and fulfill the contract you have with it are also members of your team. When you arrive at the venue, get together with them and your staff and make sure everyone knows who's who and does what, and how to contact each other quickly and efficiently. VIPs, VIP managers, and agents. It's unlikely you'll meet with these folks before the event, but both the VIPs and their managers and agents are your VIPs. So meet with them as soon after their arrival at the event as possible and make sure they know what to do, where to go, and who is working directly for them. See video 21, How to Treat Your VIPs. Web designer. Your web designer is like your graphic artist, and they may be working closely together on some aspects of the web project. Choose your web designer the same way you would your internet services provider, and work with one who allows you to be as hands-on as you want to be. Working with your web designer will include the following elements of web design and production: structure and appearance, cost per page, functionality, graphics, keywords, initial website promotion, maintenance, hosting, and marketing. Many of the meeting agenda items we've listed for one team member or group apply to others, or even all of them. Use the information in this presentation to make a master agenda checklist that you can simply copy and paste as an outline into each agenda and remove those items that do not need to be covered. Remember not to get caught up in such a meeting-intensive way of doing business that you can't get anything done. Conversely, never be afraid to call a meeting if you feel one is needed for any reason. Although meetings are often maligned, they do serve a valuable purpose, and the bigger the group you're working with, the more you need them.